Council Agency Authority members Stockton.
Here.
Ritchie.
Here.
Silva.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wiley. Here. Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Sullivan.
Here.
Mayor Chair Roulette.
I'm here. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. City Manager, any changes to the agenda tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have just a couple of changes that we need to bring to council's attention. With regards to item 6C on the consent calendar, we noticed that there is a minor revision that needs to be made to both attachments 2 and 3. The fourth whereas needs to be removed. We have included that revised language in front of the council tonight, as well as at the dais and the public counter back there. So with that revision, we're suggesting that you can make that, include that as part of your consent item for tonight as the approval for 6C. In addition to that, we're also recommending that item 9B be continued to the August 24th City Council meeting. With those changes, that concludes my report.
Okay, I'll entertain motion with the changes.
Read that one more time. So we're adding 6C.
So there was a revision, and then we're pulling 9B.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I do have to say something now that we've approved the agenda. Tonight, under closed session 12A, I will be recusing myself. I do not believe it's a conflict of, I don't believe I have a conflict in this matter, but out of abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself from participating at this time until I've received more information from the FPPC. Councilmember? Yeah. Go ahead.
I wanted to inform the public that I recused myself from last meeting's closed session item 12C because of a potential conflict of interest under Title II, California Code of Regulations, Section 87-100, or other laws and regulation. I was not aware of the potential conflict prior to adjourning to closed session. Otherwise, I would have made the announcement during open session last meeting. It would also appear that closed session item 12B is another potential, excuse me, is 12B?
No, that's a different matter.
Okay, then I apologize.
Similar names, different matter.
My apologies. So it was just 12C from last meeting.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to item 4, approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous. Item 5, presentations. I see none. Item 6, anybody from the city council want to take any item off the consent calendar tonight? I see no hands. Anyone from the public that wants to take anything off the consent calendar tonight?
I would like to pull 6A and 6B.
6A and 6B. Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public? If it's the same item, you don't have to.
I'd like to pull 6D, please.
Okay, great.
All right, I don't have an agenda in front of me, but I wanted to pull the item about the subdivision improvement map. And then there was an item on CFD number 12.
Yeah, well, that's B, 6B, and 6C? Okay.
And I'll get it in agenda right now.
Okay, great. Okay, besides item A, B, C, and D, Can I get an approval for item E on the consent calendar, please?
Motion to approve 6E.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Okay, we'll start with 6A, Mr. City Manager. You may call up.
Yeah.
You want to come back
yeah,
up and
let's-
explain?
If we could call the member of the audience requesting that, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so I wanted to pull 6A because I didn't think this was something that we should just let pass through. One of the stated goals of the strategic plan was that this was supposed to ensure public safety, but I believe that putting more police on the street and giving them more funds and more reasons to harass people does not actually ensure public safety. And it's supposed to be, you know, to help with, you know, tragic, fatal accidents and things like that. But if you're friends with the police, then your daughter can text and drive and kill someone, and the police will help you cover it up. Also, DUI checkpoints are not just DUI checkpoints anymore. Now they're DUI/license/insurance/registration checkpoints. And I don't know if y'all have actually been through one of those, but if you actually go through one of those, you'll see that some people are just waved through like this, and some people get stopped. So it's obviously not fair. It's not equitable. And that is really, it's an infringement on people's rights. And that's why I wanted to pull that item.
Well, thank you. Any other public comment on 6A?
Good evening. About 6A, I do believe that this is not putting what we talked about and the trust back into the city, into the police department. If y'all don't know me, I'm Chris. We've talked so many times on the phone. I've spoken so many times about how the police department kidnapped my little sister August 16th of last year. Took her to the back of a building, took her cell phone, put it on airplane mode, and told her that no one would find her. So this is not helping me trust you. This is not helping people trust the police department, that you're putting $100,000 more. I know you have the money, it's a grant, you're gonna do what you're gonna do with it. But what's listed here, DUI checkpoints, patrolling people, bicyclists, motorists, pedestrians, with their cell phones in their hands. This just seems like you're furthering the police state. You're finding more ways to stop people who are disenfranchised, who don't, like the person said before, you wave some people through and some people are not. And you never know what's gonna happen at that stop. So I don't believe that the company that you guys hired would go along with this. I kind of believe that this is something that's going to pass through before we talk about the real equity and change that's supposed to be happening. But this is not going along what I believe with what the plan was supposed to be. And it's kind of shady. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other public comment for 6A? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment, entertain motion.
Quick question.
Sure.
How is these, have we had access to these funds in the past? And if we have, how have they been allocated?
If it's okay with the council, I'll call the Chief Alio down to address that.
Question, Councilman Sullivan.
Hi, guys.
Question is, have we accessed these funds in the past, and how have we, or how do we expect to spend these funds?
So yeah, the state of California Office of Traffic Safety has for a decade or more made these funds available to cities for the purpose of reducing traffic fatalities and traffic injuries. So we've received it and applied it in years past.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain motion.
Sorry, one question. Sorry, one follow-up question, Joe.
Yes,
Chief. Have we seen a drop in those? Is there any way to do a comparative analysis to see if those have been effective or not?
Yeah, year to year, this last year, fatalities were down from the year before. I don't have any other statistics for you though.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief, I've got a quick question for you.
Yes.
So my question is, we're right in the middle or almost to the point of selecting a firm for the police audit. Some of the things to look at is probably patrol stops and kind of the variable factors surrounding that. Is there any way to, I see the money coming in, but can we hold on program implementation until the audit is kind of looking at patrol or looking at these sections? I guess for me, I'm just a little concerned we accept a grant, audit findings come out about some patrol-related variable that we need to adjust, and then we have to kind of go backwards. How would the audit or audit findings kind of relate to this particular grant if we launch this now?
So the short answer is no, we couldn't wait on it because we have quarterly requirements to report to the state. So the state takes our statistics to make sure that we're meeting their grant strategy. So they tell us what they're looking for, and we pursue that, and then we report to them every quarter. So we wouldn't be able to wait till 6 months from now when an audit is completed and a plan's in place. We'd have to reject the money and say, we're not going to do it this year.
If, like, let's say we get halfway through, the audit findings come out and they say something along the lines of, the way you're doing your DUI checkpoints, we need to rethink that, or some other, the patrol stops, you need to rethink X, Y, or Z. Would we have the ability to report back to the state and say, hey, we just got news, we're going to change plans a little bit, and we need to change course? Is that a possibility in this grant period if per se the audit
Yes.
came up and, yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much.
Councilmember Wiley.
The other thing that I wanted to focus on this was the traffic, because it talked about the accidents, because in my district in particular, we've talked about, traffic, and when they set the speed limit on Nut Tree, a lot of the residents were upset. I know also in the area around Markham, Councilmember Silva's talked about traffic, and other areas also have traffic. So to me, I want to look at this. I think the DUI checkpoints were like 1 or 2 were listed. It's not like they're going to be out there every Saturday night doing that. And it also has to be noticed that people are told, here's going to be a DUI checkpoint, and here's when it is going to be. And they talked about the times that it would be relatively early in the afternoon. So I hope we have 1 or 2 DUI checkpoints, but 365 days of looking at the traffic in Vacaville and addressing the speeders and things like that, because that is something that affects all of the residents in the neighborhood all the time.
That's absolutely correct. That's exactly how the grant is set up.
All right, Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Quick question. Will the detentions related to these DUI checkpoints, will they follow along with RIPA, which is the Racial and Identity Profiling Act?
Yeah, so the state mandates a city of our size to begin RIPA January 1st of next year. We've been working on it this year. We're going to start a trial program in September to make sure that we can accurately report RIPA as requested by the state on January 1st. So all of our stops will fall under that criteria that measures who we're stopping, when we're stopping them. So yes.
For what reason, why, and
Yes.
any sort of punitive action, citation, arrest will be documented with a police report.
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain motion.
Stop deny motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Item 6B.
Hello, my name's Alicia Minion, and item 6B pertains to the Montesa Vacaville LLC property owner. And it's a development that I think appears to be by the jail. I wasn't sure. And I was wondering, what was the logic in annexing this particular development into Community Facilities District number 12? As you know, this is a Melrose tax, and there are several Community Facility District Melrose tax districts in the city. There's number 8, there's number 9, there's number 10, 11, 12, and 12 is less money than 11. I live in a house where I'm levied a tax for CFD number 11, which is approximately $2,200 a month. And I know CFD 12 is less. I didn't see it on the staff report, but I'm curious, what kind of communication occurred with the property owner to negotiate that this be annexed into number 12 rather than 11 or some other CFD? And then also, I'm wondering, This particular CFD Melrose tax is specifically for fire and police exclusively. And as you know, this, and I'm not sure if this is a Travis Unified School District, and they are very underfunded and they need schools. And I'm wondering, what role did the city play? What efforts did they play in negotiating a CFD or something like that to fund the school? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Certainly. So with regards to how the CFD assignment is decided, each time a CFD is formed, the boundaries of that CFD are established. And so when you look at all the variable different CFDs that we have out there, at the time that they're created, the boundaries are legally defined. In this particular case, CFD number 12 is the infill CFD. So because it's related to infill properties that are in older parts of town that were not established as part of a larger specific plan or a policy plan area, you have different pockets, if you will, that are considered infill. That's why you have the lower rate, and that's why you do not have a contiguous boundary between all those different properties. With regards to the services that are identified in the CFD, once again, those are all defined as part of the formation of the CFD that are voted upon. And so that was what was established as with all of our CFDs in the city. With regards to the school district, that is really a different matter. And again, the limits of the CFD are what are defined legally when the CFD was first created.
Okay, thank you. Next.
So I also wanted to pull 6B to quickly explain, like in layman's terms, pretty much a Melrose tax is usually when they build a new development and then the people who live there get taxed more to pay for fire and police services. So the reason why I think that this shouldn't just be, slid under like it happens a lot. I feel like if you have to tax people extra to get police and fire services in their area of that city, then maybe you should not be developing new developments in that area of the city. The other side of it is that police and fire are about 2/3 of the general fund. And if they get all that money and they can't service these new development areas, then maybe you should look at where the money is being spent and if there's other ways where you can save money instead of just taxing people more and more and more. That's it.
Thank you. I'm going to close public comment, entertain motion.
Stop to my motion.
Thank you. Have a second? I'll second. Roll call vote. Actually, Mr. Silva, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So question is, we had a discussion beforehand, but, one of the things that we're hearing from a lot of residents is, how do we, I know this is a relatively small infill development, but how do we get the other existing needs of our community met? And, there's different ways, different approaches for that. But I think one of the frustrating things for a lot of residents is, we keep, we're focusing on certain areas, but it doesn't, one of the biggest challenges and frustrations a lot of folks are having is how do we make sure that we find ways to work out whatever we have to make sure that other needs in the community are met. Is there any way to approach that through some type of, in the past we talked about a community benefit plan or something. Is there any way to work that into this particular proposal?
So the action before you tonight is to annex into a CFD for purposes of police and fire services. So that's rather limited. You don't have the ability to expand beyond the limits of what's allowed legally for the CFD. If you're talking about other community benefits, the schools was brought up, those are functions that would have to be explored perhaps, through the city council's 3x3 effort with the school district. But those are completely different alternative funding mechanisms that would have to be explored. As far as a community benefit, again, depending on what the need that you're specifically addressing, there are other options, but we would need to target what those are so that we could, work with the community on identifying and then explore whether or not they were interested in establishing an assessment district or a benefit district that they're willing to tax themselves for that level of improvements.
And most people aren't going to want to tax themselves because they feel they're already paying higher taxes for these services and not really knowing where their money's necessarily going to. They're trusting that it's going back to, I guess, all things, but we're not, it doesn't seem we have a set way to make sure that funding gets back to address certain gaps. And when we go back to say, hey, we need additional funding for a new school in North Village or whatever, people are like, look, I'm already paying high enough taxes. And it's just, I don't know, I guess maybe part of me is just venting. So the other thing is this development also is going to be is zoned for single family housing, correct?
That's correct.
So do we have a process in place to make sure that we have ownable multi-family units?
Again, for this particular project, the scope of the project is the CFD formation. To consider something different than what's currently the property zoned for is not part of the application request in front of you. I assure you that we are evaluating those type of questions as part of another item that's on this agenda tonight, the housing strategy, to determine just exactly what kind of housing mix the city does have and what we do need to have in order to meet the upcoming vision that the council has for the community in terms of housing.
All right, thank you, Aaron.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, unanimous. We'll go to item 6C.
I am Wendy Brecken, a resident of Vacaville for more than 30 years. I'm asking you to pull 6D because,
6C.
oh, 6C.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay.
Hi, I have a question on I think it would be helpful for staff to explain the subdivision improvement agreement. In this particular development, it looks like what we're asking is to give discretion to staff to authorize them to determine, I don't know what's the terms of this agreement, but what I'd like to know is the subdivision improvement agreement, what role does it play? What role does it play specifically in the acquisition of public infrastructure like water lines, sewer lines, detention basins, and so on? And how does this agreement, how is it similar and different from the acquisition agreement that council approved a couple of months ago for to fund and to pay for the public infrastructure for Lagoon Valley? Again, water, sewer, detention basins, lift basins, so, and that kind of thing. So the subdivision improvement agreement, this seems like something that is typically executed by the city, you know, with new developments, but the acquisition agreement with regard to Lagoon Valley seemed really different. So I'd really appreciate an explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close public comment, take it back to Mr. City Manager.
So with regards to the item 6C, the subdivision improvement agreement is a traditional tool that the city uses to ensure that the approved infrastructure improvements that are necessary to serve an approved final map are installed per city improvement standards, and that before we accept those as public improvements, they meet those standards and they certify those. As far as the acquisition agreement, I'm not clear in terms of the specific questions of what you're comparing to with regards to Lagoon Valley and how that relates to this particular item.
My interpretation of the subdivision improvement agreement, it appeared that this was a mechanism for the city to actually acquire or take ownership of the public infrastructure that this particular developer of this, you know, home development, as they're building out the public infrastructure, I'm assuming that the city's going to take ownership. And it looked like maybe the developer will pay development impact fees, and then those fees are used to compensate them for building out this infrastructure. And that's what this particular agreement appeared to be. And with the acquisition agreement with regard to Lagoon Valley, that seemed like another mechanism to acquire, again, the public infrastructure that Triad and their general contractor Galati is going to be building out that public infrastructure. So unless Lagoon Valley also has a subdivision improvement agreement in addition to the acquisition agreement. So there's public infrastructure in both developments. I'm seeing two different agreements, and how are they related, not related? And that's kind of my, is that more clear? Okay.
Thank you.
So Lagoon Valley does have both a subdivision improvement agreement and an acquisition agreement. They're tied together. The improvements that are being acquired through the acquisition agreement are bigger backbone infrastructure improvements like a water booster station, a sewer lift station, some major infrastructure that is not what you typically just see in your development. So that is tied to the acquisition agreement, the formation of the CFD, and that's just another financing mechanism for construction and acquisition of those infrastructure pieces. So the infrastructure is slightly different, but it is tied to also a subdivision improvement agreement.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll entertain motion.
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Item 6D.
So, the item in 6D, the parcel is on Dobbins and Monte Vista, and it's currently, I think, called Beer 40. And I guess, the owner wants to purchase the land. So that's like, that corner's like a gateway to downtown, and the downtown specific plan is going to call for certain requirements. Also, there's a park master plan, and it's right near a park. So I'm kind of confused why this is a consent item, because it seems like there's intersection between the park master plan and also downtown specific plan, and I don't know if that's all been ferreted out. So there's also, the staff report talks about Dobbin being by McBride, and I'm just thinking that, you know, maybe without a staff report, without a staff discussion with council, maybe we're not talking about all the ideas that need to be talked about. There's a limited amount of city property, and, you know, maybe putting this out for surplus means that you're going to end up having it go to the community development, state community development, or state housing or something like that, and it will be sold to somebody completely different for maybe housing or something like that. So maybe a 99-year lease would be something that could be considered if it's a risk that you're going to lose the property to something that you don't intend it to go to. Also, the staff report talks about two different properties, and I don't, not the staff report. The staff report talks about one property, but attached to the agenda are two properties. There's another property on the last attachment, so I didn't know if that was a mistake or if did I miss it? Was it talked about in the staff report? So those are my questions.
All right, thank you. I see no other comments. I'm going to close public comment. Send it over to the city manager.
So with regards to the second question first, the reason for the second property included in there, just for background purposes, is that when in March of 2020, we issued an RFP for both sites, the one at Dobbins and Monte Vista, as well as the other one that's on property number 2 there. The reason for that is that we were trying to generate some interest and activity for pop-up businesses in the downtown area. And so we put the RFP out for both properties. And so it's just for context of the background of how we got from that effort to where we're at tonight. There was no interest in the second property, and all the interest focused on the subject property before you tonight at Dobbins and Monte Vista. So with regards to the process, because it is surplus property, and we took that, we did receive a request from the owner of Beer 40 to purchase the property. So in closed session, we went through with council to talk about, you know, the interest in doing that. And there was an interest expressed in working with them to be able to acquire the property. Because it is surplus property, we're obligated under the new state law that took effect last January to go through that process. It does have to go, so the council does have to declare it surplus. Then it does go through the State Department of Housing and Community Development, where there could be an interest expressed in for affordable housing. We do have some opportunities to work through that process, should there be an interest expressed for affordable housing. But we go through that process, and then once it gets through that process, hopefully successfully, which we believe it will, then we go through the entitlement process for the actual business. So that's where we'll get into the details of the site planning, the architecture, the relationship to, connecting to the park and to the rest of the downtown plan. So that will be, once we get to that point, that will be a process that goes through the public process.
Thank you. I'll entertain motion.
Motion.
I got a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Okay, we will move to item 7, business from the floor. This is time set aside to address the council with issues that are not on this agenda, but that are within the council subject matter jurisdiction.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Giselle. I've met most of you, but seeing a couple new faces today. Thank you for your time this evening. I'd like to start off by talking about how City Council is in person now, and there is no virtual option. There are many other cities right now that are doing a hybrid because of the COVID numbers and because of the Delta variant. I really believe that Vacaville should be one of these cities. There's a lot of autoimmune compromised folks in our city. There's a lot of disabled folks. There's a lot of elderly people who can't make it by themselves, are very scared of contracting the disease and dying. So I really feel like if you actually care about your constituents and you actually care about what all of us have to say, that you'll really consider doing something like that, a hybrid. And also wanted to just say that it really doesn't seem like y'all are taking us seriously. We've been talking to you for months about the same issues, and we still haven't seen any results, and we're still waiting, and we're still going to keep coming back.
Great, thank you. I'm going to close public comment, and we'll go to item 8A. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This first item tonight is an ordinance relating to the amendment of the municipal code relating to commercial truck parking adjacent to residential areas. Our city's traffic engineer, Gwen Owens, will be making the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, Gruma Wook, Public Works Director. I won't speak much tonight, but I'll just want to introduce the item and introduce our traffic engineer, Gwen Owens, but I'll be here to answer any questions you may have.
Good evening. I'm here to it's a public hearing to amend the municipal code to address commercial vehicle parking adjacent to residential areas. Currently, the municipal code addresses commercial vehicle parking in residential areas. Residential areas are defined as if your driveway is on that particular street, and typically a residential area has to have a certain density of driveways to be considered a residential area. We do have some locations in the city of Vacaville that we have streets that are adjacent to a residential street, that you have residents that back up onto it, that we actually have some issues with commercial vehicles parking there. One example is Crescent Drive. And the section of Crescent Drive from Epic to Vaca Valley has no residential driveways, is not considered a residential district, and thus this is an area that commercial vehicles can actually park on, and we do have issues with commercial vehicles parking on it. So we're here to amend the municipal code to basically, let's see if I can go back. Maybe not. We're here to amend the municipal code to basically have it such that if you are within 600 feet of a occupied residential house, that you could not park a commercial vehicle. So basically, once this code is this is approved and we have the second reading, what we would do is we would sign this Crescent Drive for no commercial parking, and we would also include in that commercial vehicles could be towed. And with that, the recommendation is by title only for the city council to introduce the subject ordinance.
Open up public comment. I see no public comment. I'm going to close it, bring it back to Councilmember Stockton. Go ahead.
Okay, there we go. I just wanted to thank staff. I've received several complaints about this while I've been on the city council, and I appreciate you agendizing this, putting the thought that you did into something like this that's going to improve the quality of life for the residents that live in these areas, the safety issues with people trying to pull out into make right and left-hand turns when some of these vehicles are there. So I really appreciate staff bringing this to us so that we can look at it. So I just want to say thank you.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you. I've seen that trucks park along different areas throughout the city. This ordinance would impact the citywide. Is that correct?
That is correct. So if we receive complaints in other locations, what we would do is we'd actually evaluate it, and then we would, if need be, we would actually sign it, no commercial truck parking, and that the vehicles could be towed. We will have special signs made up for this particular ordinance.
So we'll be placing signs throughout the city in any undeveloped commercial area?
So what we don't like to do is we don't like to put lots of signs up in the city because it adds sign, noise or sign pollution. And so the more signs that there are, a lot of times, the less they're recognized. So if there is an issue in a specific location, what we'll do is we'll investigate, and then if need be, we will actually place signs. So if there's any locations that you have constituents that have issues, have them contact Public Works and we will evaluate that.
So if Crescent Drive is this area, why ordinance citywide versus just no parking along the strip?
So honestly, the no parking is just for commercial vehicles. So you can actually park if you're not a commercial vehicle. A commercial vehicle is identified as 10,000 pounds or more. And so what happens if you have just a regular passenger car or a pickup truck, you can park at that on Crescent. What this ordinance does is it allows us to, number one, ticket, but the issue with ticketing, honestly, is it's cheaper for commercial truck drivers to park illegally and get ticketed than it is for them to sometimes find a full, like a rental space for their rig. And thus, that's why we also changed it to allow for towing.
So, okay. Would this also include, or could this also include RVs? Because a lot of residents complain about RVs blocking views that are parked along the streets. So a lot of if it's a obstruction of view that folks are complaining about, can we apply this to RVs as well? Or what would be the difference?
So an RV isn't a commercial vehicle. And so what we've done with RVs is, if we've had a couple of locations, specific intersections that we've had RVs that parked, and the way the parking ordinance works is you have to, if you're parked more than 72 hours, a police officer comes out or code enforcement identifies that you're parked and they come back 72 hours later and you're still parked in there, they can ticket you. We've had problems at one particular location that we actually signed no parking over 6 feet because we are allowed to do that with California vehicle codes and what's currently in our municipal code. We can do that 100 feet from any particular intersection. So if we have a location that there is a problem, what we do is we've had some complaints, we'll investigate, and then if need be, we will put up the signs. Typically what ends up happening is we will ask the resident who's parking their RV not to park at the intersection, to park away because it's a sight distance issue, and that a lot of times alleviates the issue. If they continue to park at the intersection and still create the sight distance issue, then we will actually install signs.
Okay. And just I don't know, do we have any data on who's actually parking there? Are they the workers that are just transporting stuff through our businesses in the area? Or are they just folks
I
passing
personally don't know. PD might know. I know that this has been kind of an ongoing problem, actually on Crescent. Just anecdotally, my understanding was it was somebody that potentially either knew somebody in that subdivision to the north, or they lived there, but it's not necessarily always the same person. I've worked in other agencies, and typically what ends up happening is truck drivers, when they try to find parking, they'll move from one place to the next until you basically identify, you know, this is where you need to park.
To your knowledge, maybe this is outside the scope of this, but are there certain businesses that are warehouse-based businesses that get a lot of rigs that, are there certain ways that those companies can accommodate their increased, I guess, commercial trucks?
So when a project comes through private development, with the private development process, they're required to have adequate parking to be able to serve whatever business is going to be there. My understanding is it's not necessarily a business like an Amazon that's parking there. It's somebody who is a private truck driver that either they own or rent their own rig, and they're doing it on their own. That is my understanding, but like I said, this is all anecdotal from my conversations with PD.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Wiley.
That was my question exactly, about like who is doing the parking and how, is it the people that live there or is it a business? And then you said until they find a place to park, is there any kind of rental parking space in Vacaville, or? So once we tell them, no, you can't park there, they just have to find some place. I just don't want them to move to another street until we tell them, you know, don't park there. What are the options for people parking if they have that sort of a truck?
I'm unaware of what the current truck parking rental situation is in Vacaville.
Okay, but that's basically the biggest issue that you've had in that part of town right now, then, that parking there.
Specifically on Crescent.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you. I do know that there's a travel center less than a quarter mile away from Crescent Drive that has big rig parking. And this, I just want to make it clear, they can still park vehicles in commercial areas, just not 600 feet within a residential area, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that was it.
I'll entertain motion.
I'll motion.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. We'll move to item 8.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and read the ordinance.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Sorry. Thank you.
Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Vacaville amending Municipal Code Chapter 10.20.020 to address commercial truck parking adjacent to residential areas.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 8B, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. We'll get situated over here. So item 8B is the introduction of a first reading of our ordinance related to SB 1383, relating to recyclable materials. Both Brian McLean and Samantha Brown from our Public Works Department are here to make a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. So this is round 2. Last council meeting, Samantha and I provided a informational presentation regarding Senate Bill 1383. Tonight, we are going to be going through that presentation a little bit more in depth and looking for council's consideration of approval of amendment number 3 to the franchise agreement, as well as a repeal and replacement of a section of the municipal code, which is chapter 8.08 regarding solid waste recyclable materials. As a way to advance the state's goals of reducing harmful greenhouse gas emissions, in 2016, former Governor Brown, signed into law Senate Bill 1383. At its core, SB 1383 provides a framework of regulations designed to reduce organic waste from entering the landfill, as decomposing wastes are a primary source of greenhouse gas emissions. CalRecycle was made responsible for the enforcement of SB 1383, and that implementation starts statewide beginning January 1st of next year. SB 1383 prescribes a number of programs and requirements that must be implemented by the city to achieve compliance. As you can see on the slide here, many programs, including organic collection programs, contamination monitoring, significant education and outreach, enforcement and penalties, edible food recovery programs, ordinances to the municipal code, policy changes related to those ordinances, and other requirements. What's different about SB 1383 is for the first time, the state legislature has given CalRecycle the power to financially penalize non-compliant jurisdictions up to $10,000 per day per occurrence. Because the city's franchise agreement with Recology, Vacaville Solano, RVS, nor our municipal code were compliant with SB 1383, in June of last year, with council's approval, staff contracted with HF&H Consultants to assist city staff in negotiating with Recology for inclusion of those required programs into the franchise agreement, as well as updating the city's municipal code. To sum it all up, we developed project goals and objectives, and the meat of it is this: meet the state law, get the city into compliance, ensure that we have an adequate and more likely a robust public education and outreach program related to these significant changes. Within the parameters of SB 1383, within the law, develop customer-centric focused programs so that we provide as many possible choices and options within the Senate Bill 1383 paradigm that will be incorporated into the city's franchise agreement if Amendment number 3 is adopted. Negotiate for the lowest possible rates. A big premise of mine and a core, obviously, on this goals and objectives. I'm a ratepayer. We're ratepayers. Protecting the ratepayer is a big component of this project. And then to do that, goal number 5, which was to meet that protection of the ratepayer, incorporate annual financial accounting mechanisms to review the annual applications for increases and adjustments by Recology as they submit them. Again, those reviews are designed to protect the ratepayer. Pass it off to Samantha now.
Well, it was clear from very early on that a significant public outreach effort would be needed to notify the public about the changes SB 1383 would bring. To that end, in December 2020, city staff launched a multi-layered and multilingual outreach campaign utilizing a variety of media formats. Residents and businesses were notified by mail in the form of city utility bill inserts, quarterly Recology bill notices, and recycling newsletters, each reaching approximately 33,000 homes and businesses per cycle. Ads have also been placed in local magazines each month, including Your Town Magazine, Vacaville Magazine, and Leisure Town's Town Hall Magazine. And bilingual postcards have also been sent by mail. Newspaper ads have run in the Reporter twice each week for the past 6 months, and flyers have been placed at the entrances to all city facilities and on all city public transit buses. Electronic formats were also utilized, including the city's own recycling website, vacavillerecycling.com. And through coordination with the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce and Downtown Vacaville Business Improvement District, information was distributed through targeted emails sent directly to the business community. Additionally, over 400 radio ads have aired on KUIC thus far, each one reaching over 200,000 listeners. And slides have been placed on Channel 26 and social media posts to the City of Vacaville and Vacaville Recycling Facebook pages. All of our outreach materials direct residents and businesses to visit the SB 1383 Central Information Portal. The website, which is available in multiple languages, offers up-to-date information and resources on SB 1383 and includes an overview of the changes to come for residential and commercial customers, as well as videos and downloads from past city council presentations and a library of all of our outreach materials.
The next few slides I'm going to go through relate to the impacts to residential, commercial, and the city of Vacaville itself. In regards to residential, as required by SB 1383, all residential customers will receive the 3-container collection cart system. That's the solid waste gray cart, the green waste green cart, and the recyclables blue cart. Leisure Town residents who currently do not have a green waste cart or a recyclables blue cart will receive those carts in the smaller 32-gallon size at the low-capacity truck rate in recognition of the site and space limitations and the required use of the smaller pony trucks due to the weight considerations relevant to Leisure Town itself. If a resident, however, of Leisure Town decides to upsize any combination of their carts, the option is available to do so. The organics recycling program itself will expand to accept a broader range of organic materials. In addition to the typically accepted green waste materials that we all are used to utilizing the grain can for, leaves, trimmings from your lawns, etc. Residential and commercial customers will now be allowed to recycle eggshells, seafood, shellfish, bones, meat, poultry, and rice. To help residential customers with their organic waste disposal, an under-sink food scrap kitchen pail will be provided for easy disposal of organic waste into their green waste organic cart. And it looks like this. Ours will have our logo on it for the city of Vacaville and the recycling logo. As far as commercial impact, a bundled cart rate was developed. Customers have a choice of either a 96-gallon or a 32-gallon solid waste cart, and with that, they get a 96-gallon recyclable cart at no cost and a 32-gallon organics cart. Options have been made available to give commercial customers a choice of cart bin size with rates that match the size of those containers. For both multifamily and commercial customers, the city developed a physical space waiver program to address situations of limited space for organics and recyclable containers, as well as a de minimis waiver program for situations of low volume generation of recyclables and organic materials. Finally, for the convenience of the commercial customers, compostable plastic bags will be accepted in organic waste containers. As far as the city of Vacaville, one of the primary impacts will be, or changes, will be that delinquent account collection will shift from the city managed annual delinquent account lien process, which we conducted at the last meeting, to Recology, where the fees for service are collected by the franchise holder and the debt collection process is also managed by the franchise holder. Where necessary, the city will assist Recology in the mailing of delinquency notices from the city to the customer about those delinquent accounts. As a mechanism to encourage delinquent account holders to resolve their delinquent accounts, Recology may reduce the size of their solid waste gray cart from 96-gallon down to a 32-gallon, which ensures public health and safety as it relates to garbage collection. And Recology may remove the recyclables and organics collection carts. As is current practice, delinquency fees will be assessed on the unpaid account balance only. There will not be any compounding of those fees. As I mentioned earlier, protecting the ratepayer is a primary goal of this project. Amendment number 3 incorporates 2 significant analytical rate adjustment request procedures to vet Recology's request for annual rate adjustments before a change in rate can occur. Those 2 rate mechanisms are the annual rate review and the detailed rate review of 2025. The annual rate review consists of an extensive annual rate adjustment procedure for all years of the franchise agreement except 2025 and includes an annual CPI analysis, an analysis of SB 1383 compliance fee for city ongoing management of the SB 1383 program, and periodic delinquent account reconciliation analysis. The detailed rate review will be performed in August of 2024 and set the rates for January of 2025. The detailed rate review entails an extensive analysis of program fundamentals and financial data. The detailed rate review will allow the city to analyze a wide range of Recology submitted information, including the review of financial statements formatted in accordance with the Generally Accepted Accounting Principles GAAP. Reconciliation analysis will be conducted between submitted Recology rate adjustment application and Recology financial statements. Operational data will be reviewed by tonnage, by truck route. Forecasted operational data will be analyzed. Using the aforementioned criteria, a specifically defined methodology will be used, which is incorporated into Amendment Number 3 to calculate that total rate adjustment factor for 2025. Graphically, you can see here the annual rate adjustment review schedule as well as the detailed rate review. The two financial review mechanisms will ensure that only fully vetted and substantiated Recology rate adjustment requests will go into effect January 1st of each year of the franchise agreement term, based on the extensive financial analysis procedures incorporated into Amendment Number 3.
Well, as Brian mentioned earlier, in addition to the changes to the franchise agreement, SB 1383 also requires updates to the city's municipal code. The updates apply to Chapter 8.08, solid waste, yard waste, and hazardous waste. Based on the gap analysis, the updated elements of this chapter include alignment of the language between the franchise agreement and the municipal code, updated definitions, incorporation of the requirement to subscribe to the 3-container collection system, a city-managed physical space and de minimis waivers program for situations of limited container space and low-volume generation of organics and recyclables by multifamily and commercial generators, and delinquent account collection now managed by Recology. In regards to the SB 1383 food recovery mandate, CalRecycle defines edible food as food intended for human consumption. However, SB 1383 does not require or authorize the recovery of food that does not meet the food safety requirements of the California Retail Food Code. SB 1383 further defines edible food generators as including businesses such as supermarkets, grocery stores, food distributors, restaurants with 250 or more seats, and hotels with on-site food facilities and 200 or more rooms, among other similar businesses. As it related to the SB 1383 required edible food recovery mandate, beginning January 1, 2022, commercial edible food generators will be required to start recovering edible food. They must also contract with a food recovery organization for the collection and distribution of the edible food, and of course maintain records of those transactions. On the other hand, food recovery organizations will need to ensure they have a written contract with edible food generators and maintain records of their transactions. And as required by SB 1383, the city will be developing a web-based informational directory to assist in connecting edible food generators with food recovery organizations operating in our area.
So that's a lot, I know, but how does it all wrap up and how does it impact the rates? On June 25th of this year, Recology submitted rates to the city pursuant to Amendment Number 3. The rate request was thoroughly analyzed and found consistent with the program details as negotiated between the parties. Subject to the council's approval tonight in regards to the overall customer rate impact due to the required mandates of SB 1383, residential and commercial businesses can expect a 4.2% increase over existing rates starting January 1st of next year. The rates displayed on the slide here are represented in Attachment 6 of the staff report. For single-family, residential, and low-capacity truck rate service areas such as Leisure-Town, the 4.2% increase represents an approximate increase of 81 cents to $1.32 more per month. At a 4.2% increase, so how does Vacaville compare to other jurisdictions? As I mentioned at the last meeting, no two cities are exactly similar, but in the broad scope of the impacts of SB 1383 across multiple cities in California, the 4.2% that we've been able to achieve here is low. We have continued to look for other municipalities in the last 2 weeks, and we continue to find no one as low as 4.2%, which Vacaville has been able to achieve. Summarizing, SB 1383 is the law. No compliance equals fines up to $10,000 a day per violation. The program starts January 1st, 2022. CalRecycle is the leading agency on enforcement. The 4.2% rate request with organic rates equal to solid waste rates is consistent with the negotiations and agreed terms. Recology needs noticing and operational preparation time to notice customers at least one billing cycle, 3 months prior to the effective date of the rate adjustment, January 1st of 2022, and of course, operational time to prepare for this significant change. In terms of fiscal impact, upon City Council's consideration tonight, if approved, solid waste recycling and green waste collection rates will increase as detailed in Attachment 6, effective January 1st of next year. Compliance failure could expose the city to CalRecycle fines up to $10,000 a day per occurrence. Strategic plan goal and initiative is Goal 4, maintain effective and efficient services. And finally, the recommendation. Adopt the subject resolution approving amendment number 3 to the agreement for solid waste recyclables, green waste collection, processing, disposal, and street sweeping services between the City of Vacaville and Recology Vacaville Salado, and introduce the subject ordinance of the City Council of the City of Vacaville, repealing Chapter 8.08, solid waste, yard waste, and household hazardous waste, and replacing it with Chapter 8.8, solid waste, recyclable materials, organic waste, and household hazardous waste, as the first reading. That concludes our presentation. Samantha and I would be happy to answer any questions. Additionally, Tracy Swanborn with HF&H Consultants is in the audience, and she'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
I'm going to open it up to public comment first.
Hi, Alicia Minnie. I just have a couple questions on the amendment to the, looks like to the Muni Code. So we have an existing Muni Code, it's being repealed, it's being replaced, and under section 8.08.020, it says department authorized. Quote, the power is granted the city council. I don't know if it's the power is granted to the city council, maybe that's what it's supposed to say, to create any time by resolution. And what was inserted is new language, recycling and then old language, and then new language, management department. So a recycling and waste management department. So is that department being created? Does there have to be additional staff to, address the recycling piece of it that was added to this Muni Code? And then it says, so a recycling and waste management department of the city, and to collect, remove, and dispose of all solid waste. This is all old language. And then new language that says recyclable materials, organic waste, new language, construction and demolition debris, or household hazardous waste. So the new language, construction and demolition debris, is that something that Recology's always done, or is this new language because this is a new service? Is Recology going to now be collecting construction, demolition debris? So would this include like a public or private project? And so if somebody could respond to that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm going to close public comment, and you want to answer the questions? Good. There you go.
There we go. No new department is being created here. In regards to the C&D, commercial and demolition waste, Recology has continued or has in the past and will continue to collect that waste as required by our community development department. Recology is the city's franchise hauler, and therefore the designated recipient in terms of, or designated vendor in terms of the hauling of our franchise waste, solid waste, including commercial and demolition waste. So there's no change, no project. This is language that is being incorporated pursuant to SB 1383 and the mandates of that new law.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilmember Roberts.
I was wondering if you could go back to the slide about the delinquent, different actions that can be. Sorry, I forgot what slide it was. 10. Slide 10.
10.
All right, so going back to this, one of the biggest things that stood out to me was solid waste cart may be reduced from 96 to 32 gallons. And then you also mentioned it could be removal of the green waste in the recycling bin. So to me, it seems like state's put a big emphasis on the green waste and recycle bin. So moving those, I see be counterproductive to what the state's trying to do. And also with the reduction in size, most families have pretty standard amount of trash waste, with the exception like holidays or different types of purchases. So have you considered any of the secondary, tertiary effects of reducing the size of the gallons to public dumping or dumping in commercial trash bins? Because to me, like if you reduced it and they're still producing the same amount of trash, it still has to go somewhere. And then Public Works will probably get stuck cleaning it up. So.
Great question. So we have evaluated that information. In terms of the delinquent accounts, there's got to be and this is an industry standard, industry practice utilized by not just the city of Vacaville in this new language, but other jurisdictions across the city, or across the state rather. In terms of that bad debt collection, there's got to be a change in behavior once a delinquent account goes delinquent, and it goes delinquent for 90 days before Recology even sends out, a notice of delinquency. That said, it's important for the city to ensure that solid waste is continued to be collected, and therefore that's why the gray toter would be reduced from 96 gallon to 32 gallons. So we don't get rid of the solid waste container. It's still there. It is reduced. It's a way to be able to work with the customer to ensure that those delinquent accounts are addressed in a timely manner. In addition, in regards to delinquent accounts, the issuance of late payment notices may be made by Recology, telephone requests for payments, reduction in the service level of the size of the gray cart, as I mentioned before, are methods that Recology would be allowed to be able to use under this amendment to work through those delinquent account issues.
Okay, as far as the green waste and the recycle bins, does that stay within compliance of the new bill that's going through? Because I know, yeah, I mentioned recycling green waste is one of the biggest things that they're pushing on the different cities. Yeah, it just seems kind of counterintuitive that you can just take that away when that's what they're trying to accomplish.
It does seem counterproductive, but again, it's a way to work through the behavior on those delinquent accounts and make it a point of importance to the account holder about the delinquent accounts. Thankfully, the city of Vacaville has had a solid process. We don't, in terms of those delinquent accounts and working with Recology, our partners in Recology have over many years and will continue through this amendment, if council adopts it, in working with individuals who have those delinquent accounts to work out those plans to address those delinquent accounts. And in the end, as in all matters where the city has a connection to a contract such as this one, Public Works is available. We have a recycling coordinator available. Our telephone number is plastered all over our website. If there's ever an issue with Recology, the individual can simply dial up Public Works or go onto the website, get that number, enter an email, send an email to the recycling coordinator. We evaluate all those complaints through a monthly process of meeting with Recology to resolve customer issues.
Okay, so those are just like very last step measures after it's gone through several attempts and
Absolutely.
Extended timeline to get that taken care of.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Wiley.
Thank you for your work with the notification of people, because I get my little things in the mail and I see it all the time. So I have been really working to start that process too. So I think that you've been very successful with that. So my question is, have you also done as successful of an outreach with the food generators and the food recovery people? Because that is going to be a big piece when you talked about all those reports that have to be made, and it has to be done in a timely manner so the food that's being recovered doesn't get spoiled before it gets to the intended audience. Otherwise, the food recovery people are going to be throwing away instead of food generating people. So it just took more effort to throw it away. So it's going to be a big piece of information and education for them. So I don't know if that mostly falls on you as city staff, or does that mostly fall on Recology?
It's going to be the city. We are in charge of the education and outreach component of it. Thankfully, there's a silver lining to this. Back in 2019, when council approved AB 1826, which was commercial organic recycling driven, another state mandate. Back at that time, we had already started, so both Samantha in Public Works on the recycling side, as well as Recology, had already started working with our commercial generators. So they're in the rhythm, and what we had started to find out through our research and working as we started to have our interactions with those particular food generators is that many of the large ones have already been in the mode of recycling, reuse, and connections. They had already had connections with many food banks, both in this county and outside of the county, which surprised us. But that will work into SB 1383, and it will help us get a leg up in terms of the implementation. Starting next year, Samantha and myself will be doing an incredible amount of outreach targeted to businesses in particular, as well as working with Recology. There will be labels that will start showing up on people's toters. Where does it go? And it will help educate individuals as to, what is this particular item and which toter or cart does it go into? So there's more to that to come. As soon as council, if you consider for approval tonight and this is approved, starting tomorrow, we'll be putting together our next phase in terms of the implementation, and outreach being a major piece of that.
So is there any liability on the city if the food generator and the food recovery people, have you had any issues with that, with the commercial, like some food was bad or people complained about something like that? And then do you also work with like the Contra Costa Solano Food Bank, or do you work with Vacaville and other things that are local as well?
The law is specific to our region, to our municipality, so we're going to be focusing on Vacaville, although we have already reached out to Contra Costa Food Bank, just so that we have on our website, which we'll have a website that links both the generators and the food service distribution agencies. We'll be putting that together and bringing those elements together. What we've found already is that there's a lot of agencies, a lot of these food generators that already have these tools in place. So we'll be extracting what we can in terms of information and providing that onto the website so we can help other food generators make those links. Because Senate Bill 1383 hasn't fully implemented, we won't really know until January 1st, what kind of distribution issues that we might come into contact with between the food generator and the food service distribution agency. Right now, tentatively, knowing what we do know in terms of the connections between those two entities that are going on in the marketplace now, it seems like it's working. So we're in hopes with some more additional education and outreach that we'll be doing, personal outreach to these businesses, that we'll be able to circumvent any of those failings and catch them early when we can through an interactive process where Samantha and her staff are actually going out to those food generators and having those conversations, and then involving Recology so the correct mechanisms and programs are brought forward to help them meet those legal mandates.
All right, and the last comment I had was not really related exactly to this, but it was in that chapter that we were reading about the whole Recology and the solid waste. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the landfill passes, because each residential customer gets a landfill pass, but it's in your January bill. And now so many people do paperless things. I just want to make sure that the people are still getting their landfill pass. But if it's October and you're looking for it and it's in the January, sometimes it's hard to access and find. So anything we can do to let people know that they have a landfill pass and use it, because we have, some neighborhoods have more trash than others. And if they knew that they could have a free haul, then that would be wonderful. And the second part of that, I didn't know that the city got 400 landfill passes annually. So I don't know if the city has 400 dumps each year, or if it said they use at their discretion. So if sometime there's a neighborhood that needs to be cleaned up, that would be something that we could use to clean up. So shout out to the landfill pass.
All right, Councilmember Roberts.
Sorry, just follow up on something from the last presentation. I believe Alicia Minion brought it up. Were you able to find the numbers for like the absolute values? Because using percentages for comparative analysis isn't the best way to do it, because you can go from $2 to $4 is a 100% increase, and going from like $50 to $75 is only a 50% increase. So saying that we're lower percentage wise, I grant 4% is not bad. We're only paying like an extra dollar or something a month, but comparing it to these other cities and jurisdictions, we're able to find those numbers for.
What we've been able to find, again, I want to preface that again, as I did in my staff report and in my presentation, what we're looking at, what that slide demonstrates and the text of the staff report is a broad comparison. We're not, I am not, and I want to preface that and make sure that's very clear here. We're not comparing apples to apples. We're looking at the broad spectrum of the impacts of Senate Bill 1383 across a multitude of jurisdictions. What the information that has been presented is what we know today. Some jurisdictions haven't started. Some jurisdictions are moving through the process as we were 6 months ago. The jurisdictions that you saw on that presentation or on that slide there with those comparisons, again, not apples to apples, but a broad comparison of the impacts of SB 1383 across the California jurisdictions that we've been able to derive right now with actual numbers. Some of the agencies that we've been in contact with, they're not ready to release those numbers. They're still working through those processes. So I can't give you an exact number, an apples to apples comparison. As I said, this is just a general, here's what we see as the impact and here's where Vacaville lands.
Okay, I just want to follow up because I remember there's a question asked last council meeting. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. 9A, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. This thing,
I'll
ordinance.
read the ordinance title before.
You know, I told myself to.
Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Vacaville repealing Chapter 8.08 Solid Waste, Yard Waste, and Household Hazardous Waste, and replacing it with Chapter 8.08 Solid Waste, Recyclable Materials, Organic Waste, and Household Hazardous Waste.
Thank you again. Okay, 9A, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. Council, this next item is a approval of a contract for the preparation of the city's comprehensive housing strategy. We have Emily Cantu and Tamara Colden from our Housing and Community Services Department to give you a presentation.
Your mics are hot.
Yep, thank you very much, City Manager, and good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Tamara is going to go ahead and run us through the presentation this evening.
All right, good evening. Now it's our turn. Good evening, Mayor Roulette, Vice Mayor Sullivan, and council members. Tonight, we will be presenting information on the proposed contract with Economic Planning Systems, Inc., or EPS, to prepare a comprehensive housing strategy. A little bit of background on this topic. On February 23rd, the City Council adopted the City of Vacaville Strategic Plan for fiscal years 2021 through 2026 and prioritized the implementation of those strategies. The plan includes goal number 3, protect Vacaville's quality of life, and prioritizes promote housing for all as initiative 3A. The council also adopted the implementation strategy to develop a comprehensive housing strategy that would promote rental and home ownership, identify strategies to remove barriers, identify new ways to generate affordable housing and preserve existing affordable housing, and identify ways to encourage the development of housing for all current and future Vacaville residents. On July 6th, a special City Council meeting was held to receive a Housing 101 presentation. The information and data provided at that presentation supported the need for a housing strategy to address the importance of ensuring a wide variety of housing is available to support a strong economic development strategy, the existing gap in a variety of housing, including missing middle and mid-rise housing, the anticipated increase in the number of housing units that must be planned for to meet the upcoming regional housing needs allocation, and depletion of land and cash remaining from the former redevelopment agency to be leveraged to develop affordable housing as outlined in the City Council approved housing disposition and development strategy. Since adopting the strategic plan, a team of city staff have been meeting to discuss implementation of the comprehensive housing strategy. As a result, a request for statement of qualifications was issued on April 22nd of this year, with responses due back to the city by May 14th of this year. The city staff team selected Economic and Planning Systems, Inc., or EPS, in partnership with PlaceWorks as the most qualified respondent, primarily based on demonstrated prior experience with similar projects and understanding the scope of work and deliverables the city is seeking. Attachment 1 of the staff report includes a summary of the key components of the proposed scope of work, which is anticipated to be completed by February of 2022. This slide lists those key components. The full scope of work is included in the draft contract for services included as attachment 2. The cost for the comprehensive housing strategy is $120,927. $100,000 is already included in the approved non-departmental budget. An additional $20,927 additional budget will be needed and is recommended to come from Measure M. Again, this work is in connection with the city's strategic plan, goal number 3, initiative 3A, promote housing for all. Tonight, staff is recommending that the City Council provide any comments to the proposed scope of work and, by simple motion, approve a contract with EPS in the amount of $120,927, authorize the Housing and Community Service Department Director to enter into and implement the contract, and approve a one-time expenditure in the amount of $20,927. And with that, we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'm going to open up public comment.
Hi, Alicia Minion again. What I'm asking council, as in addition to this, hiring this particular third party, I think really to have a successful and to develop a successful comprehensive housing strategy, we need to include the community. It just seems like current housing projects, it just seems like it's operating in a silo. There's no transparency. Just all of a sudden, there might be some community meeting because there's some affordable housing project being built somewhere in town, and it ends up on a particular site. We don't know how it happened. I just think that there's a better way to ensure that the housing that we have prospectively, that's being prospectively, that we actually develop and design a plan that's going to achieve the goals that this particular third party, I think, is going to review and come up with some kind of plan. But I really think we need the community involved. I don't know if this third party has worked with the city of Vacaville before. I don't know how familiar they are with the city of Vacaville. We have a housing element that's going to be updated. It's going to need to be updated in 2023. And I think this is our opportunity to really develop something that makes sense and that really meets, kind of meets the needs of the community. And I think we need to look, instead of being short-sighted and just to build housing for the sake of building housing, I think we really need to think about what does our community need? What are in terms of the population and the demographics of the people that are here and that are moving here, I think it really needs to be studied and analyzed. I'm not sure how in-depth this particular organization, I don't know what kind of analysis they're going to be performing. I'm unclear from the list or from the staff report, all the data that's going to be considered. But just one thing that, and all in all, that really stands out is the community participation's missing. Other cities have community or commissions made up of community members that actually review the housing element and just housing in general. The city of Davis has it, and I hope that council will consider establishing that type of commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, I'm going to close public comment. Vice Mayor Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a really exciting contract. This is probably one of the most exciting kind of projects I've seen come forth since I've been on council, and I think it's vitally needed. Really comprehensive scope of work. I thought you guys did a great job with the consultants. A couple areas that I just wanted to provide some specific feedback, and it kind of speaks to the last speaker's comments. So on page 431, under task 3, it's all about the public outreach, right? So I think it's so much more important that the consultants and staff actually talk with struggling seniors, with struggling families, with our retail workers or our frontline workers that can't afford to get their own place, with immigrant communities here in Vacaville that have been forgotten about, and really talk to folks that are sitting and waiting on those Section 8 voucher lines. So I really want to see that section expanded. It's only a few sentences out of the whole scope, but I really think that's probably the most important part, is the people that are experiencing housing shortages and housing deficiencies here in Vacaville now. So I'd really like to see that beefed up. I love the fact they're going to talk to us, talk to realtors, talk to the development community. That's great, but to some degree, we've already heard their voices, and we need to hear from the folks that are experiencing the housing issues. So if we could really put an exclamation point on that section, I think that would be awesome. The second piece, and again, I thought the scope mapped it out well again. So on 435, task 6, I believe, there is a paragraph about making solutions and recommendations. We know what the problem is. I mean, the problem is the median wage in Vacaville and the housing prices are sky high. I could tell you all about the variables and the housing, we know why it's happening. I really want some good solutions and some good studious recommendations, some very task-based, smart solutions that come back to us that are very specific, reasonable, and attainable. And really, if we're not getting, that should be a third of the report at least. That really, we need the ideas, we need the experts. Any of us in the crowd could even tell you what the problems are, but we need to know what the possible solutions, ideas, and et cetera, are. And then the last piece, and I didn't see this anywhere in the scope, and I'm not sure if it should be included or shouldn't be included, and City Manager, you can box it out if this comment isn't relevant, but I don't just want to see housing, specifically housing tracks. I want to see communities. So I think we also need to look at parks, and we need to look at schools, and we need to look at retail centers and amenities. We have all of these neighborhoods where kids can't even walk to a park, or we have all these neighborhoods where local seniors can't get to the library or the senior center. We could build housing tracks all day long in Vacaville, but are we building communities? And so I'd also like to have them look or kind of assess kind of a community ranking on new housing that we need, but also where we're deficient. We have these neighborhoods now where we overly concentrate low income, high density housing, and there are no amenities in these neighborhoods. And so we need to talk also about communities, not just housing needs. And I know it's purely on housing, but we can build all the houses in the world. If we're not building communities for our families and seniors, we're doing it wrong. So again, super excited. This is going to be a great journey. I'm glad you two are at the helm. Thank you for the presentation today, and I look forward to meeting with Sultan.
Councilmember Wiley.
I'm also looking forward to this report and the whole study, and I do believe if we involve the public early on, then it saves time later on. Like tonight, we were going to have something on there, and there were people here, and then they left when it was called off. So we get a lot of feedback after the fact. It would be better to get that feedback early on, so I would encourage that. And we do need a plan for affordable housing from the get-go, not trying to fit it where we can. And I know you were working on that, so I think that's great to have this plan. The other thing on page 419, when it talks about key components, it was a pretty comprehensive list, but I was looking on that list to see where the CFDs would fall, because in our neighborhood with a lot of the houses, and that's come up tonight too, it is different from house development to development, and it's prohibitively high in some of the ones that I hear people are saying, I can't stay in my house because it's going up and up. So I guess it might fit under barriers, but I would like to see it specifically addressed, how the CFD process is and how that, is a barrier to housing in some areas. And then the other thing, when you look at apartment buildings or multi-family units, I think it's great if we can go on early on talking about having charging stations available for people in the parking lots. I'm on the Yellow Solana Air Quality Management Board, and we just recently had a grant, and 2 of the grant applications were from apartment buildings in Vacaville, and they are going to be able to have charging stations, not as many as they would like, but at least it's a start. So I think the charging stations, the public input, and the CFDs should also be part of your report.
Thank you. Councilmember Silva.
Thank you. Are you able to comment on their experience with community engagement, developing task-based plans?
Yeah, so as part of the response to the application, they presented examples from other communities that they have completed housing strategies, one that was similar and one that was a housing strategy. So they're very clear on the tasks that are included in the scope of work, and the team felt that they're definitely able to deliver those, and with feedback from the community up front, for sure, to put the input into what is needed. So that feedback is going to come from the community, and then develop a plan that works for Vacaville. And PlaceWorks is doing the community outreach. They have worked with the city a lot with different projects with our planning department, and are also going to be working on the housing element, so they understand kind of the big picture, but are also able to focus down on a specific housing strategy for us that makes sense, and conduct all the community outreach.
So how loans are, would it be within the scope of this to consider how local loans are dispersed? For example, let's say someone applied for $300,000, $400,000 home loan, makes $100K, and however the lender processes their application fee in the immediate area. Is there any, is that something they take into consideration to determine how we would actually implement certain policies to ensure that there's more opportunities for ownership, particularly for working professionals?
They are going to be reviewing and making recommendations related to promoting and supporting different home ownership opportunities. So my answer would be yes, that will be part of this strategy.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of go down thank you, Emily. I'll just kind of go down my list. So like, just kind of on that note, it's not even just low income folks. It's that need housing, whether it be more affordable rental units, and that are working, hard with the dream to own a home. It also includes our teachers. It includes a lot of young professionals that are coming out with student loan debt, that have made it out of the bottom, so to speak, and, been able to capitalize on their college education, but yet are really hampered based on these different factors. Just had a conversation with a 23-year-old retired Marine, and even for $450,000 through as a vet, for a home loan, he still can't afford a home locally. Tell him, hey, well, probably best bet is a townhome locally, but yet like that isn't very that's not available. And I think even the agenda item earlier where I was so irritated, just personally, nothing against anybody here or even on the developer side, is just we have retired vets that committed their life to our country. We have educators that are committing their lives to our kids. We have working professionals that still, people on our staff that can't afford, that love this town, but yet still struggle to be able to afford a home, to build that equity and build off and continue to invest in our community. So to me, that is the as much as divide there is in this, not just this town, but this nation, that this is the unifying thing, that everybody's concerned about housing, particularly how their kids are going to be able to afford to live here, who want to live here. Even for the ones who say, I'm out of here, I'm never coming back, and they come back. Not that was any of us, so yeah, just really looking at making sure that they get out and get different input from all different folks within our city boundaries. Looking at how what policies can we implement to encourage more multifamily units over single family units. It seems like that again is the focus, unless we're doing rental units. And quite honestly, I'm also looking to entertain. Let's say I understand I feel I understand that concept between the benefit of developing rental units, but is there a certain way that at some point, 30, 40 years down the road, those rental units can now be converted to something that can be owned either by those tenants, or be, you know, put up for sale. Thank you, Councilmember Wiley. Absolutely agree about additional charging stations and any developments, and see how we can work that in, you know, access any funding for that. But I know that's a bit down the road, but really looking to see how we can implement more charging station in apartments. Same concept, building communities. That's something that's come up from a lot of my colleagues up here. You know, I don't want us to work in silos. I think that's one of the gaps that's kind of catching up to us in society. How we kind of get focused on our own unique profession, which, you know, makes life easier and makes more sense. But you know, how do we, when we design these things, you know, having in mind, how does this impact our local schools? How does this impact our parks? How does this impact our seniors? How does it impact our working families? Just, you know, being cognizant of that as they come out with the feedback from the housing strategy. And just to clarify, I think Vice Mayor Sullivan said task-based. Will this come up with, the funding for this strategy, will it be something that we can just like literally plug and chug? Is that, sorry, plug and chug is maybe a science term.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with that term, but
like here's the template, and it's like, so it gives us some options of how we can achieve those goals based on the input.
yeah, the implementation will be based on the scope of work. So as the consultant goes through the different tasks and creates the deliverables, they would invoice us for the work completed until completion. And hopefully that answers your question.
But it'll come up with like kind of a template. Will they be able to provide a template on, hey, this is how you'll be able to get, this is how your people who are making 50,000 young professionals, this is how they will be able to, if you follow this, they'll now have an option to purchase these homes.
I think that would be part of the recommendations. I don't know how specific would be for a template, but they will have recommendations of what the city can do to help implement more home ownership opportunities for those that need those opportunities. And the need could be income-based or occupation-based or whatever need they identify at the very get-go of the work.
Could they, I guess the question, you don't have to answer today, but I'm still nagging about, is there any way we can ensure that there's home ownership for certain professions? You know, one common one that comes up is teacher housing. Is there a way we can ensure that that profession has access to that housing? And another one, again, you don't have to answer now, but another way to ensure that a larger investor doesn't come in, buy these lower price housing, but then turn around and rent them out, kind of defeats the purpose of providing home ownership to folks who need it.
I think for tonight, my response would be that the city only has certain things that they can control and
So I'm interested in
policies
seeing, what do we have to do to
Right.
get to what? Even what we feel we can't control, what do we have to do to get to that point?
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, thank you. Not necessarily regard directly towards you guys, so I'm really excited about this whole thing, and my fellow council members brought up a lot of really good, excellent points, which they covered pretty much everything I wanted to ask. So I'll go for more generality. This is probably more towards the city manager. For these RFQs, I've sat on some, I've done contracting work for different levels of government. What I'd really like to see, kind of basing off a little bit what Alicia Minion mentioned, is more involvement either from the council, because we are maybe not necessarily a committee, because that could be very time consuming, and if we could, that'd be awesome, but at least include council members, maybe some people from the community, like selected, that can help out with these types of housing or different RFQs for different subjects. Yeah, just to incorporate us more into these decision-making processes. Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Stockton.
Thank you for the presentation. I also just wanted to mention senior transitional living, not only in trying to find affordable housing for seniors that's, you know, ADA compliant to their needs, but also in future planning. You know, I recognize that these developers, they own the property, they want to maximize their profit margins, and they want to build these big, giant, you know, elaborate homes and get the most bang for their buck. But maybe we might be able to work with them to build more granny flats. While I do agree with my colleagues about home ownership for seniors, if we have, if we can try to encourage maybe some of those one-story type granny flats or accessory dwelling units, that folks that no longer want to go up and down the stairs to do laundry or carry stuff up and down, when they're ready to move, can either move into an accessory dwelling unit or a granny flat and rent out there to supplement their income, and maybe pursue some of those strategies as well. I also know that Fairfield has, out off of Paradise, has a transitional senior living where they go from being in one-story homes to an apartment complex to more serious needs as those are needed. So I'm wondering if we could maybe look at the possibility of bringing some type of housing or something like that with assisted living. Thank you.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Hi, so thanks so much for the presentation. I don't want to echo too much in length of what everybody else said, but what I took from comments from Silva and Robertson and the whole crowd, I think to go, first and foremost, I think it's amazing to have a proactive approach to housing. Instead of being reactive and waiting for us to talk and listen to developers, like Stockton has mentioned, they're there for profit maximizing gains. Being proactive, using the money to build a plan so that Vacaville City residents could see a structure that is not biased by people trying to make money, but trying to do better third parties is really important. The main thing about affordability, cost of living index is income, and trying to get certain groups' ability to acquire homes is something I see a lot of, but the education has to be just as strong as the input. If everyone is asking questions, we need to be able to reiterate that with solutions. So a big part of the housing strategy has to be not just hearing from the public and creating a website, creating a chat room template to get questions in, but we really need to educate and inform the community and people in different job structures of what it takes to buy a home, what are the options of home ownership, what are the transitions of going from an apartment, possibly having profit sharing and rent. Kind of the rent-to-own strategy is coming back pretty strong in some communities. What can you do to actually get into home ownership? How can you work with your levels of debt ratio, income? Understand that you have to have an active participating role in your own destiny too. The city can help. We find ways. One way is education. We need to make sure that we can build a proper homes, go from smaller homes, like example, the new Green Tree Hopeful plan has smaller size homes, which really fit the ability to go from a large single family to a small single family and age in your community. Has to be available. The education has to be there. When it comes to people coming out of job professions and a lot of young veterans, they need to understand that the ratios play a big part. So that's why education. They can work as hard as they want, but if they don't understand the dynamics of home ownership and affordability, it's uphill battle. So I think along with the housing strategy, we have to make sure that here it is, here's a blueprint. We have to make sure they understand how to fit into the game, how to fit into the strategy. I think really you need to spend time in education. The city really wants to help people become homeowners and feel invested in the community. They need to feel the city is providing with no benefit. I mean, we're the city, this is the private sector. We're trying to help them, educate them to get home ownership. I think that's the biggest missing part is not asking, knowing the answer is not the question so much. Like, now I know how I need to go and build a personal blueprint to success. They need to understand like everything, if there's wants and needs, and what might limit them as gratification for the future. I think that's the biggest part of home ownership is really the education part. We can build it, but if they don't have it, understand the path, the blueprint to get there, they're going to get blocked and get frustrated. So I think this education has to be a big part of this plan.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll motion approved.
Okay, do I have a second? Good. Yes. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, we'll move to item 9C. Chief Conception, welcome back. Which mic do you want? You want the other one? It's hot.
All right. Evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. We meet again. Took a short break, but we're back here to give another COVID update. So as we usually do, we'll start off with the numbers in the state of California. We're closing in on 4 million cases. And the differences as far as the numbers, this is from the last time I gave you an update on June 29th, so exactly 6 weeks ago. So in that 6-week period in the state of California, there have been an additional 255,000 some cases. And as far as the deaths, 64,000 cases, an additional over the 6-week period, 1,627. These are the big difference here is the 7-day positivity. So as of today, California is at 6.2% positivity rate as far as the tests that are being taken. So that's an increase of 5.2% for over that 6-week period. So back on June 29th, I reported to you that the state was at 1% positivity rate. In Solano County, we just passed 37,000 cases. That's an additional 3,294 cases over that 6-week period. And then as far as active cases, another significant statistic to show you is 600, we're at 626. That's an additional 484 active cases. So people fighting the disease today. There are 484 more people fighting the disease today as compared to 6 weeks ago. And then also 101 currently hospitalized. So 6 weeks ago, there were only 9 people that are hospitalized. There are now 101 people hospitalized in Solano County. There have been 10 additional deaths in that 6-week period. And we're tracking about the same as far as the 7-day positivity rate. We're at 5.8%, an increase of 4.2% as compared to 6 weeks ago. In Vacaville, in that 6-week period that have been, we're up to 9,695 cases, approaching 10,000, and we're at 819 additional cases in a 6-week period. So averaging, do real quick math, about 150 cases a week. As far as vaccination, so some of the good news is vaccination obviously is, the goal is to have 100% of the available population to be vaccinated. In the state, 63.7% of the eligible population is fully vaccinated, and an additional 9.9, so a total of 73.6% of the population is partially vaccinated, have at least one dose. Solano County, I don't have city-specific numbers on that, but Solano County, we're at 59%, so we're tracking a little bit behind the state as far as vaccination rate. So 59% of our population is fully vaccinated, and 71% of our population is partially vaccinated. So as far as the status is concerned, obviously, the reason I'm back is there has been a significant increase in cases since June 15th. The reopening, when the governor allowed or lessened the restrictions, allowed full capacity into the restaurants and a couple of other things that were allowed people to get out more and open businesses up to full capacity. And then as far as the sharp rise in, or sharp increase in cases, as well as hospitalizations, that's happened especially after the July 4th holiday. You've seen that, just a real sharp turn or increase in the curve. Now, the good news is in the last couple of days, I mean, I've been poring over the statistics and the charts and stuff. In the last couple of days, both in Solano County and in the state of California, there has been a drop in the rate of cases that are happening on a day-by-day basis. So that is good news. As far as the 9 Bay Area counties, so out of the 9 Bay Area counties, 8 of them, 7 out of the 7 out of the 9 Bay Area counties, as of I believe last Tuesday, which was August 4th, they reinstated a mask mandate indoors, regardless of vaccination status. On Friday, I believe, of last week, Napa joined those 7 Bay Area counties. So 8 out of the 9 Bay Area counties have reinstated a mask mandate. Solano is the sole Bay Area county that is not included in that mask mandate. And in hearing our public health officer, he is indicating to us that he is planning on continuing to follow the state recommendations and mandates. So there has been the state back on, I believe, July 28th, because of the increase in cases, they recommended that regardless of vaccination status, that masks be used indoors, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, but that was simply a recommendation. So that recommendation is in place, but not mandated here in Solano County. As far as Vacaville is concerned, I'm sure, sorry, I need to change the wording. It wasn't recommended, it was urged. So there's a difference in those words. So as far as Vacaville is concerned, we're monitoring the situation closely. We participate in the fire department. We participate because we're a healthcare provider. We participate in a weekly call with Solano County Public Health. And that's where we're getting the information. So we hear from Dr. Bella Matias, our county public health officer, every week as far as what's going on, the latest on the disease process and what's happening in the county. We are following all, I want to emphasize that we are following, just like the county is doing, following all the California Department of Public Health, as well as the governor's orders and recommendations, as well as county public health mandates and recommendations. This has been our stance throughout the entire pandemic. So, some people may ask, why aren't we, joining the other, as a city, why aren't we joining the other Bay Area counties? Well, we don't have a public health officer, and my mom wanted me to go to medical school, but I never did, so I don't have that expertise. We need to follow someone who does have that expertise, and throughout the pandemic, we have always followed our public health officers' recommendations and guidance, and we continue to, and we're planning on continuing to do so. As far as some other information, it's the Delta variant that is causing the great increase in it. So just to give you some information on the mask, no mask, because you might get some of the questions. The Delta variant is 2 times more contagious, and it's responsible for about 80% of the new cases. As far as the vaccine, Dr. Fauci says it works. There are, though, no vaccine is going to be 100% effective, so there are going to be some breakthrough cases. But as far as those that are getting the COVID-19, even after they've been vaccinated, it's a very, very low percentage. And of those people that do get infected, even though they've been vaccinated, very few show any kind of signs or symptoms of being sick. In fact, and this is kind of old data, but this is the latest data that I was able to find. The CDC says that there were 6,587 people who were vaccinated that have been either hospitalized or died as a result of COVID, but that's out of 163 million people who have been fully vaccinated. So very, very low case as far as the breakthrough having a real adverse effect on you. So the message as far as the CDC, public health, is get vaccinated. Just to reiterate where we are as far as recommendations and mandates, as far as the city is concerned, again, we're in line with what the county and CDPH is calling for. If we have meetings like this, for example, masks are permitted but not required for those that have been vaccinated, and for those that are not vaccinated, anytime you're indoors in a public setting, you have to wear a mask. But that is what we're calling a self-attestation. So people are it's kind of on the trust system or the honor system that we're doing that. As for, we're not asking for any verification of vaccines as far as that's concerned. It is a little bit different as far as city employees and anyone who's contracted with the city, or anyone that's volunteering for the city. We have to, in order to not have to wear a mask indoors, we have to show verification of and proof of vaccination to HR. And so in that case, anyone who's vaccinated does not have to wear a mask, but those that decide they don't want to release their vaccination status, or and don't give the paperwork to HR, then we're just going to assume that they're not vaccinated and they have to continue wearing masks. As far as the public, again, it's a self-attestation or honor system. All of the reinstating of the restrictions all has to do with mask use. There has been no changes to further restrictions on businesses or meetings or anything, or in-person meetings or anything like that. So with that completes my presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I'll open it up to public comment. See none, I'll close public comment. And I have Councilmember Silva.
Thank you for the report, Chief. It's really just to the council. I'd like to make a motion to bring back on our next agenda the opportunity for our commissioners and council members to access our meetings and through a hybrid approach, assuming they're taking certain precautions for whatever reasons, that they're unable to come to the meeting in person. Does that make sense?
Are you okay with it?
To agendize,
Yeah.
sorry, to agendize bringing back or implementing a hybrid meeting.
Right.
Yes.
So that our council members and commissioners can access and participate in the meetings via hybrid approach.
It would just be,
So
all I agree is bringing it back so we could discuss it. You can make that motion.
Yes, and that would have to include a public option as well to participate remotely or in a hybrid method, but we can bring that back for further discussion.
Okay.
If the council votes to do that.
Are you good with that?
That's my motion.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, thanks for the update, Chief. COVID aside, I was wondering if you had any update on like how your mitigation and weed abatement projects are going throughout the city, and how is it going for, just the fire department as a whole, as we're in full swing of fire season now?
I'm sorry, the question was related to how we're doing with regards to emergency
COVID.
services for
COVID.
Yeah, it was just asking the chief if he had how the weed abatement and fire stuff was going.
So on this
Wait,
particular item, we
Stick to
can't really
COVID.
address that at this time. We can certainly, during council comments, raise that, and we can bring that up.
You might want to sit right there. Okay, I'm going to move on to city manager reports. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. I am very pleased to announce that I am no longer serving double duty, which is a good thing. We pleased to announce that our new Community Development Director, Erin Morris, started this week, Monday. She brings to our organization 20 years of experience in the planning field with cities such as San Jose, Santa Rosa, and most recently Napa. Her experience and talents will take us far in the planning and community development department. So I'm very pleased to announce her arrival and joining our executive team. And so with that,
Welcome. Thank you. All right, City Council, item 11. I'll entertain, I think, Mr. Roberts.
Can you repeat your question real quick?
Just if you had an update on how the fire mitigation and weed abatement programs are going in the city now that we're in full swing of fire season.
So just to give you an update of our firefighters right now, we've got a total of 12 firefighters that are out helping in the Dixie Fire and other Northern California fires. The Dixie Fire, I believe, is the second largest fire in California history, and they don't expect containment for probably another month or so on that. So our firefighters are going to be continue to be busy, and will be helping throughout the state. As far as here locally, happy to report that all the properties, code enforcement did, as they do every year, has done a great job in sending out the notices, getting and making sure that all the properties have been mitigated. I believe we only had a couple of properties where actually we had to mitigate it. The property owners were actually really good about getting that stuff done this year.
Okay, and from a few council meetings ago, were you guys able to get your new alert systems installed in the firehouses?
We're still working on that project, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
I just wanted to quickly acknowledge a constituent in District 4. I've been working the last probably month or two on some issues surrounding neighbors in Alamo Gardens and the Skylark Mobile Home Park. There have been some just issues between the neighbors there, and quite a few calls for police service and some other things. A bunch of staff came out a few weeks ago, and I really appreciate their assistance. Tish Rushikowski was the woman who sort of arranged this whole thing and kind of made the calls to council and submitted kind of information to kind of get the ball rolling and really kind of fight for her neighborhood and be a champion for that area. So I just wanted to acknowledge her contribution and her big heart to change her neighborhood. Sadly, she passed away 2 weeks ago. So I just wanted to send my acknowledgement to her family and commit to her family that I'll keep up the fight for her neighborhood and just really acknowledge, what one resident can do in their district. So just wanted to send a shout out to Tish's family tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Silva.
National Night Out was a very interesting experience for me. Last time when I was partying on a residence and when cops pulled up, I was usually with the group that was running. It's probably the first someone comment like that from a council, I just realized, but that's the truth. But it was, the community engagement was phenomenal. Seeing all these different folks come out, all the different city staff, all these different organizations, just average folks just coming out, enjoying a meal, enjoying conversations, was awesome. And so thank everybody for, that participated and was able to participate in that. Thanks for putting that together. The other thing I just want to really highlight, there was a backpack giveaway. Father's House donated an abundance of backpacks. Chief dropped off some backpacks. And Travis Credit Union donated some funds to get backpacks. There's almost 400 backpacks along with supplies that were given out just that day. I shot out a quick email to a couple folks that I know have been, engaged in our community in different ways, and all of them came out, and gave whatever supplies they could. Melody Ocampo, thank you. She gave me hot off the press information from about the $1,000 scholarships that our council approved, or funding for Parks and Rec, just to ensure that all families of all ages really have access to the different wonderful programs through our Parks and Rec. It was also interesting to say, oh, that's great, Mike, cool. Now you got to work for us too, because we're hiring. It's great that your kids or folks sign up, but there's job opportunities there for those who are 15 and a half and up as well. So, but really want to thank staff for pulling stuff together, just on how we come together as a community. It was awesome to be a part of. So thank you all.
Thank you. Councilmember Ritchie.
Okay. I'm kind of late to comment, but I'd like to thank Chief for the presentation. I know it's something that you don't want to do, but I think it's really important that you do it. Definitely the interest and comments I've been in sound the public about the kind of fear behind, Delta, where we're going, and knowing that information is coming from someone like yourself, Chief, as opposed to social media and opinions is really important. It means a lot to know that it can be kind of dialed in and it's very trusted as a part, like he said, she said. I don't know if it was appropriate to talk about National Night Out, but that was an amazing event. Just really want to give a lot of appreciation to the whole staff putting together. And that was an amazing experience. Being my first National Night Out, I actually kind of came out with a bang, and I dressed up as Officer Hightower from the classic 80s movie, Police Academy. And that was me. Maybe you can tell. But it was something that I thought was really important. National Night Out is supposed to be a fun celebration of all the collaboration of city works, police and fire, and bringing the community together, meet your neighbor, and understanding that this is a big thing. We all come together. And so I wanted to kind of make it lighthearted and really show people that you can have fun, that all the people in our city that make this place work, community residents and the officers, responders, we're all in here together, kind of really humanize the role of what we do. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to really just kind of break the ice and show people that, there's times to have fun and times to be serious. And we need to kind of differentiate and tell the difference. So hopefully everybody took it well, but I just want to appreciate the opportunity, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Wiley.
This is National Night Out, Take 3. I just wanted to say that I also really enjoyed it. It was the first night that I had participated, and I thought the city did a great job planning it. And Detective Pro drove me around, and we went, and it was really interesting because we saw young people participating, and they were having a blast being out in the street, being out playing, and a lot of neighbors mixing. So we drove to about 6 in the neighborhood, and everyone was just really happy to be there. So it was a wonderful event, and I was happy to participate. And about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I did the park tour with the Parks and Rec Department, and I really enjoyed that. The commissioners did a really nice job, showing us and city staff, and we were able to go to about 6 different stops and saw the park and saw what improvements needed to be made. So I really appreciated and enjoyed that opportunity. And then tomorrow is, I think, the first day of school for Travis, and I think also Vacaville probably starts this week.
Thursday.
So I just, be extra careful with driving around because there's going to be people in the neighborhood. And also just a big shout out to the before and after school programs, and hopefully the, thank goodness it's fun, is able to be staffed, because I know they were looking for people to run those programs, but it does make a world of difference for the families who need that care. And finally, just to follow up, I talked about the charging stations and Yolo Solano Air Quality District. Vacaville is kind of unique in that our town is divided in our air quality districts. So I'm part of Yolo Solano. So if anyone knows anyone in the Bay Area Air Quality District, hopefully they have also some grants for charging stations, and that Vacaville could participate in that as well. Because there were 2 apartments, and that was just from the Yolo Solano. So that's my comments, and I'm glad to be here tonight.
Thank you very much. Glad to have you. Councilmember Stockton.
Thank you, Mayor. I too had a great time on National Night Out. Officer Hightower was a hit. But tonight I want to talk about a hero that 3 years ago unfortunately left us before it was really his time. On August 8th, 2018, CHP Motor Officer Kirk Gress lost his life serving his community. And although he is missed, he will never be forgotten. He leaves behind his legacy of his wife and his 3 kids, one of which is following in his footsteps to honorably serve the city of Fairfield. And I just wanted to make sure that on the anniversary of his heavenly birthday that we recognize him and his contributions to our community and to our state.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Then we have 11A, the designation of the voting delegate or delegates for the League of Cities for the annual meeting. I believe everyone's going besides the vice mayor. Is there anyone that wants to volunteer for this before I tell someone that they have to go and vote?
I can vote whatever way I want.
Yeah, absolutely. You're it. I'll make a motion for Councilmember Silva.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Perfect. Are we good with that? Good, perfect. All right, we will move to item 12, closed session. I don't believe we're going to be reporting anything, so good night, Vacaville.